Friends of the world, I wanted to talk a bit about what to look for when finding a good trombone for you. So I personally, when I'm looking for a trombone, there are a few different places that I'm paying attention to make sure it's a good horn. I know it can be kind of confusing because sometimes you're like, what in the world do I need to look for? How do I know it's a good horn? So I'll just, over the years, I kind of just tell you what I kind of discovered. Okay, so the first thing that I would probably want to know about the trombone is if it's a new trombone, then the slide should be good. There's really no excuses if it's a new trombone. I know it takes a little while for the slide to work in. It gets better over time. Yes, it does. But if there's no lubricant on the slide should feel pretty good. And the lubricant will just kind of accentuate the good slide and kind of take it to where it needs to go as far as the smoothness of it. Another thing I look for when I'm looking for a good horn to get is the blow. Now what I mean by the blow is like the endurance and the responsiveness of it. What I noticed is that when I am playing a good horn, it's super responsive, and what that means is that the notes kind of speak right away from the moment that you articulate and put your air through the horn. When it's an instrument that's maybe not quite built to the way that you want it to, what I found is that the blow of the instrument, there's a little tiny resistance to the embouchure muscles, and it makes you fatigued. You're going to get tired much easier. So I found that a good instrument gives you much more endurance. The blow is perfectly aligned with your airflow as you're going through the instrument, where you can maximize your ability on the instrument without getting fatigued so much. So when I play like kind of a cheap instrument that's not really made well or put together, I notice that my chops get real tired. I notice that I maybe will get like maybe kind of an injury actually sometimes on my chops from an instrument that's not quite made well. So that's actually one of the main things, is the endurance. So we got the slide, now we got the endurance, blow, and responsiveness. I put those in the same category. The next thing I look for when I'm getting an instrument that I think is good is how's the flexibility of the instrument. So that means how well does it enable me to do lip slurs, how well does it allow me to do those you know, moving around from register to register in a easeful manner. So flexibility. The next thing I look for is the intonation. How in tune are the partials? So everyone knows what the partials are. Partials are just the overtones, and those are on all 7 positions, okay? So I look to see how those are in tune with each other, and the better the instrument, the more in tune those are going to be. So you can actually even, you know, get a tuner, look for a tuner and put it on your instrument, and then you can check that out and you'll be able to know. The better the instrument, the more in tune the partials are, was what I found. So that's another thing, is the intonation. Is it even? Is it good up and down the horn? Are all ranges of the horn in tune? So that's another thing I look for when I'm looking for a good instrument. Probably the last thing that I would think of, there's other things, but the last thing that I would look up is like the tone quality. How good is the tone quality? Is the sound good? And you can usually tell right away if you play it and you're like, oh, I like that sound. You know, if you've been listening to music, you know, have a good idea and you know what kind of a good tone quality is. So those things. So you got the endurance, the blow, the responsiveness. You got the slide. How good is the slide? You got how good is the flexibility with your lip slurs. You got the intonation. Are they even on the partials? And you got the tone quality. Those are the main things. And then other things you want to check is like how well is the instrument built, you know, as far as it look like it's going to fall apart or not. But those are the main 5 things that I always look for when I'm looking for an instrument. I know it's confusing because people are like, how do I know this is a good instrument? How do I know I have a good instrument? And that's what I found over the years. Those kind of 5 things will at least point you into a better direction on what to look for when you're getting a good instrument. And this applies to all instruments, really, not just the trombone. I know it may be different for some string instruments, but that's kind of a similar kind of a thing, those kind of categories. So if you're new here, I welcome you. If you've been returning, thank you for watching. This is Paul the Trombonist. If you love the trombone as much as I do, all you got to do is just hit subscribe. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you all so much. I want to thank all my patrons. I just really appreciate you all so incredibly much for tuning into my videos. I really don't thank you enough, and it really means a lot to me. I read your comments. I appreciate it so much, because without you, this wouldn't exist. I would be talking to nobody. So that's basically it. It's Paul the Trombonist signing off. You take care, my dear friends of the world. Peace out!